The Beast of Krellor Prime. The sky above Krellor Prime was red like fire. The wind carried the scent of blood, smoke, and fear. In the center of the massive arena stood a tall figure. Her armor was black, her eyes cold, and her body covered in scars. She held two sharp blades, dripping with fresh blood. Her name was Ziraka, and she was not just a warrior. She was a hunter. All around her, the alien crowd roared. They stood on high platforms, cheering her name. Ziraka raised one blade in the air, then turned to the body lying at her feet. It was another strong fighter. Strong, but not strong enough. The announcer's voice echoed through the arena. Another one falls. The Beast of Krellor Prime remains undefeated. Ziraka did not smile. She never smiled. To her, battle was not fun. It was survival. It was pride. It was everything. She walked out of the arena without a word. Outside, warriors from many worlds spoke in low voices. Some feared her, some hated her, but none dared to fight her. Not anymore. She's a monster, one alien whispered. No, she's a legend, said another. But deep inside, even Ziraka felt something missing. She had fought the best. She had crushed champions, broken their bones, shattered their hopes. Yet the fire inside her heart still burned. Still empty. Still angry. She remembered her home, long ago, burned by war. Her family lost. Her people scattered. That pain never left her. So she hunted stronger warriors. She told herself, if she beat them all, maybe the pain would stop. But it never did. The next day, a new tournament was announced. The Galactic Warrior Trials, the most dangerous event in the galaxy. Every planet would send its strongest. The prize was not gold, but respect, power, honor. Ziraka signed her name without hesitation. The tournament would be broadcast across the stars. Billions would watch. As Ziraka sat in silence in her private room, her eyes scanned the list of fighters. Strong names, known names, but none scared her. Then she saw a name that made her pause. Kade, human, unknown. She frowned. A human. She said to herself, they're weak. They don't belong here. Still, something about the name bothered her. There was no rank, no history, just a name, just a species. And yet, he was in the tournament. She laughed. It was a dry, cold laugh. I'll crush him first, she said. Far across the galaxy, on a quiet transport ship, Cade looked out a window. Stars moved slowly past. He held a simple steel sword in his lap. Not high-tech, not shiny. Just plain and old. An alien beside him chuckled. You're going to fight her, the Beast of Krellor Prime. Cade didn't answer. He just nodded once. You'll die in seconds, the alien added, shaking his head. Cade smiled. Just a little. Maybe, he said softly. But maybe not. The tournament began 3 days later. Lights filled the sky. Crowds screamed. Banners waved. Warriors entered one by one, proud and loud. Some carried axes. Others had laser guns or giant hammers. And then came Ziraka. The crowd went wild. Her name was everywhere. The Beast. The Champion. Ziraka. She walked slowly, eyes cold, face calm. She stared at her next targets like prey. Then, a door opened, and a single man walked in. Cade. No armor, no shield, just his body, his feet, and one sword. The crowd laughed. Some even booed. Who let a human in? He won't last 10 seconds. Ziraka didn't laugh. She just watched. Studied him. He walked with no fear. His steps light. His eyes calm. Something inside her stirred, but she didn't know why. He dies first, she whispered. Back in the waiting room, a small camera showed the list of matches. Cade's first fight was in 2 hours. Ziraka's was in 1. She walked to her fight without looking back. Her blade was already sharp. The battle began quickly. She moved like a storm, fast, deadly. Her opponent was a large beast from Jarnock 7. Strong arms, thick armor. Didn't matter. Ziraka dropped him in seconds. She stepped on his chest and looked at the crowd. "I'm still the strongest," she said. Meanwhile, Cade sat alone in a quiet corner. He placed his sword on his knees and closed his eyes. Someone asked, "Aren't you scared?" He opened his eyes and said, "She hunts warriors, but she's never fought me." The weakling with no armor. The arena buzzed with energy. Sparks flew from giant screens. Loud alien music echoed through the air. It was the second day of the Galactic Warrior Trials, and all eyes were on Ziraka. But in the shadows, far from the bright lights, Cade stood alone. No one looked at him. No one cared. He didn't wear armor. No shield. No flashy lights on his back. His clothes were simple, light gray, plain, with small cuts from past battles. In his hand was the same old sword. It didn't glow. It didn't hum. It was just steel. But Cade's eyes told a different story. They were calm, but sharp. Up in the observation tower, high above the arena floor, Ziraka stood with crossed arms. She stared at the large screen that showed her next fight. Not yet Cade, but close. "I don't understand," said one of the council members beside her. "He has no armor. He didn't register any past victories. He has no known combat rank." Ziraka didn't answer. She simply narrowed her eyes. "He's hiding something," she said. "Like what?" The council member laughed. "Fear." Ziraka turned away. "No, something else." Cade's first match was against a 6-armed brute from the volcanic moon of Ralk. The crowd loved him. His name was Gorek, and he had crushed 12 fighters in last year's games. When Cade stepped into the ring, the crowd laughed. One alien shouted, "Is this a joke?" Another threw a piece of food at him. "Take off your sword and run, human." Gorek raised both top arms and roared, "I will break your bones and use your spine as a belt." But Cade didn't flinch. He only said one word. "No." The bell rang. Gorek charged like a wall of muscle. Dust flew. The ground shook. Cade didn't move, not until the last second. Then, he turned sideways, let Gorek rush past, and lightly touched the brute's shoulder with his sword. Just a tap. Gorek stopped, confused. "What are you?" Then he screamed. Blood sprayed from his shoulder. The deep, perfect cut. The crowd went silent. Cade stood behind him, sword pointed downward. His face calm. No breathing fast. No shaking hands. Just stillness. Ziraka leaned forward. "What was that?" she whispered. A slow grin formed on her face. The match continued, but not for long. Gorek swung his fists wildly. Cade ducked under each one. Dodged. Slipped past. He didn't fight with power. He fought like water, flowing around his enemy, waiting for the right moment. And then it came. A clean slice across the leg. Another on the arm. Gorek dropped to one knee, gasping. Cade stepped in close, raised his sword, but he didn't strike the killing blow. He simply looked into Gorek's eyes and said, "You have strength, but no patience." Then he walked away. The bell rang. Match over. The crowd was quiet at first. Then they roared. "He's fast. He's a shadow. No human fights like that." In the viewing hall, Ziraka turned to her second in command, a tall lizard-like warrior named Valza. "Fight him next," Ziraka said. Valza raised an eyebrow. "He's a beginner." "He's hiding something," Ziraka replied. "Find out what it is." Valza nodded. "I'll break him." The next fight was set, Cade vs. Valza. Word spread quickly. It was the first serious match, a real test. This time, when Cade walked into the arena, the crowd didn't laugh. They leaned forward. They watched closely. Valza entered with 2 curved swords and armor that shifted like scales. His tongue flicked out. His voice was cold. "You were lucky last time, human. That ends now." Cade didn't speak. The match began with speed. Valza moved like a blur, his blades swinging in deadly arcs. Cade blocked one strike, dodged the second, slid under the third. The movements were smooth, almost lazy. He didn't attack. Not yet. Valza growled. "Fight me, coward." Cade tilted his head. "Are you sure?" Valza roared and charged again. But this time, Cade stepped in, parried the blades with one swift motion, and twisted his body, sending Valza spinning to the ground. The crowd gasped. Ziraka narrowed her eyes. Valza leaped up, furious. He came again, faster, harder. This time, Cade blocked every blow with small moves, almost dancing. Then, in one perfect motion, he disarmed Valza. One sword flew into the air. The second hit the ground. Cade pressed his blade to Valza's throat. "You're not bad," he said, "but you fight like everyone else. Loud, angry, predictable." Valza stared up in shock. The bell rang. "Match over." Ziraka said nothing as Valza returned, breathing hard. "He's not normal," Valza said. "He sees the fight before it happens." Ziraka's voice was quiet. "He's not just fighting. He's studying." Later that night, Cade sat in the dark corner of the fighters' quarters. A few aliens stared at him from afar. Some were curious. Some were nervous. But no one approached. Cade stared at his sword, ran a finger across its edge. His lips moved, barely a whisper. Soon, back in her chamber, Ziraka placed her blades on the table. She didn't sleep. She only fought. She remembered the way Cade moved. The way he didn't kill. The way he spoke softly, yet made the others feel small. Something about him didn't fit. She looked in the mirror, and for the first time in years, she felt something she hadn't felt since her first battle. Not fear, but uncertainty. The day she stepped into the ring. The day began with thunder in the sky. Not from clouds, but from the crowd. Every seat in the great Krillorian arena was filled, from the lowlands of Vicari to the ice worlds of Tranos. Beings of every shape and size had come. Giant screens floated in the air, showing the biggest match yet. The announcer's voice boomed. Ziraka, undefeated, unmatched, unstoppable. Cade, the human without armor. The man who fights like wind and strikes like lightning. And for the first time in years, the people didn't cheer for Ziraka alone. They wanted to see what would happen when the champion met the unknown. In her chamber, Ziraka stood in silence. Her blades were sharp, her armor polished. But something inside her was not the same. She looked at her reflection. Eyes hard, shoulders strong. But there was a flicker of something else. A question. What if I lose? She shook her head. No, she whispered. I cannot. Across the hall, Cade sat on a bench, wrapping simple cloth around his hands. His sword rested beside him. No armor, no guards, just calm. An old alien fighter, scared and half-blind, walked by and stared at him. You're either a fool, the alien said, or a ghost. Cade smiled a little. I'm neither, he replied. Then what are you? Cade looked up. His voice was quiet, but strong. I'm ready. The match was special. The rules were different this time. No surrender, no escape. One must kneel or fall. And for the first time ever in the tournament's history, the judges allowed the fighters to choose death or mercy. Ziraka entered first. The crowd roared so loud the ground shook. She walked like a storm, slow, steady, filled with power. Her blades glowed blue from battle energy. Her eyes locked forward. But when she stepped into the center of the arena, there was silence. All waited for the one who challenged her place in history. And then, Cade appeared. He stepped through the gate with no music, no lights. Only footsteps, quiet, light, controlled. His sword rested on one shoulder. His gray shirt moved gently with the wind. Some in the crowd leaned forward. Others held their breath. This human didn't look strong, but they had seen what he did to Gorak, to Valza, and now he faced the beast herself. Ziraka stepped forward. Her voice was like steel. You could have walked away, human. Cade looked at her, calm. But then I'd never know who you really are. Ziraka's jaw tightened. You think this is a game? No, Cade said. I think this is your prison. She blinked. What? You fight because you're angry, not free. The announcer didn't wait. The bell rang. The match began. Ziraka charged. She moved fast, faster than anything seen in the games. Her twin blades spun, slashed, struck with the force of 10 engines. Cade ducked, slid, blocked with his sword once, then vanished to her left. A slice of her armor tore, just a scratch, but enough. Ziraka turned sharply, furious. No one touches me, she shouted. She came again, blade spinning. Cade blocked 3 hits, spun around her, and tapped her back. The crowd gasped. Ziraka growled. You're mocking me. Cade shook his head. I'm trying to show you. Fighting isn't just killing. The duel became faster, more intense. Blades clashed like thunder. Dust rose around them. Sparks flew as steel kissed steel. Ziraka pushed harder. Her rage burned hotter. Cade moved softer, focused, flowing like water. She screamed and struck downward. Cade caught the blade in a perfect crossblock. Their faces were inches apart. You fight like someone running from something, he whispered. Ziraka snarled. Shut up. She kicked him backward. Cade rolled, stood, and smiled gently. You're better than this. For a moment, just 1 second, Ziraka hesitated. In that crack, memories returned. A burning home. A broken sister. Her first loss. Her first scream. Her vow. Never again. That pain had shaped her, fueled her. But this human, he saw through it, like glass. She rushed him again, faster, harder, with everything she had. The blades came down. And then, it happened. Cade stepped in, turned, and swung once. Just once. Ziraka's blades shattered. Both of them. Pieces flew across the arena. She stumbled. Her knees hit the ground. The crowd went completely silent. Only the sound of wind. Cade stood over her. His sword pointed down. But he didn't strike. Ziraka breathed hard, chest rising, eyes wide. She looked up and saw not a killer, but a mirror. Why didn't you finish it? She whispered. Cade's voice was soft. Because you were already broken. I just showed you the cracks. She looked at her hands, at the pieces of her blades. For the first time, she didn't feel powerful. She felt empty. The crowd didn't cheer. Not yet. They didn't know what to feel. The champion had fallen, but she was still alive. And the human, he wasn't just a fighter. He was something else. Ziraka stood up slowly. Her legs shook. She looked at him, not with anger, not with hate, but with curiosity. Who trained you? She asked. Cade turned away. Someone who once said what I just said to you, he replied. And then he walked out of the ring. No celebration, no cheers, just silence. And respect. When pride begins to crack, the great arena was quiet. No music, no fireworks, no chants. Ziraka had knelt, not because she chose to, but because a human made her. Not with power, but with precision. Not with hate, but with something she had never seen before, control without ego. Inside the healing chamber, Ziraka sat on a stone bench. The medics had left. Her wounds were small, but her pride, it was bleeding. She stared at her hands, big, strong, calloused. These hands had crushed skulls, broken bones, lifted trophies. But today, they had dropped her blades. She had kneeled before a man who didn't even wear armor. Her mind whispered old things, memories from years ago. A small hut, a sister's laugh, fire, screams, smoke. That night, Ziraka became something new. Not a child, not a dreamer, but a hunter. She told herself pain made her stronger. She believed strength would protect her. But now, a single sword swing had cracked the walls she built. Elsewhere, Cade stood in the lower courtyard. He looked at the stars, quiet, calm. A younger fighter walked up to him, the shy reptilian girl. "You beat her," she said softly. Cade looked down. "No, she beat herself." She tilted her head. "I don't understand." He smiled. "She's been fighting everyone, but she never stopped to ask why." The girl was quiet. Then she nodded, slowly, and walked away with something new in her heart. Hope. That night, a storm rolled over Krillor Prime. The rain hit hard. Thunder cracked the skies. But Ziraka stood in the training yard, alone. She held 2 practice sticks, not blades, no armor, just her and the rain. She moved through old motions, the forms she learned as a child. Strike, turn, block, breathe. Strike, turn, block, breathe. Over and over. She tried to clear her mind, but Cade's words kept echoing. "You fight like someone running from something." She growled, slashed harder. "You were already broken." She spun, screamed, and struck the post with full force. The stick cracked. She fell to one knee. And this time, it wasn't because someone made her. It was because her own body could no longer lie. The next day, the council held a meeting. They had questions. A human, winning, a legend, kneeling. The galaxy was watching. A councilman with silver skin spoke. "We can't let this human keep going. It's bad for the games." Another replied, "He plays fair. He follows every rule. But he's disrupting the system." From the back of the room, Ziraka entered. All turned. She wore no armor, just a long coat and her own silence. She spoke one sentence. "If you fear him, you're already weaker than him." Then she walked out. Meanwhile, Cade prepared for his next fight. His opponent, Vornak the Silent, a deadly assassin with 6 eyes and no mercy. But something strange happened. Vornak didn't show up. Later, they found his quarters empty, the walls sliced, his weapon missing. He had left the tournament. No one knew why. Some said fear. Others said Cade had visited him the night before. No one could prove it, but everyone felt it. This human was changing the rules. Ziraka watched from the shadows as Cade trained. He didn't lift weights, didn't punch walls. He practiced slow, smooth movements. Footwork, breath, balance. It was like a dance, a quiet, patient, dangerous dance. She stepped forward. Cade didn't turn. "You're early," he said. Ziraka crossed her arms. "You knew I'd come." He nodded. "You're not done with your questions." She stepped closer. "How did you learn that swing?" Cade stopped moving. "From a man who beat me once," he said. "Years ago. The only one who ever did." Ziraka raised a brow. "So you were broken once too?" Cade nodded. "But I didn't hide from it. I listened to the pain." He looked at her, straight in the eyes. "And I healed." The silence between them grew heavier. Ziraka's voice softened. "I saw fire too, you know." Cade said nothing. "I lost everything," she said. "That's why I fought." Cade walked over, picked up his sword, handed it to her. "Then stop fighting the memory," he said, "and start fighting with it." Ziraka took the sword, held it. It was lighter than she expected, but it carried a weight she had never known. That night, the entire arena lit up again, A new match was announced, not between Cade and a champion, but between two brothers from the Red Worlds, famous for tag team combat. Cade would fight both, alone. It was a test, or maybe a trap, but Cade agreed. Ziraka watched from the high balcony. This time, she did not cheer. She did not wait to laugh. She studied. The match began fast. The brothers came at Cade with cinched movements, curved axes, and smoke bombs. Cade didn't panic. He flowed between them like water. One moment on the left, one moment behind, one moment gone. He struck, blocked, slid, rolled. The crowd screamed, but Ziraka didn't hear them. She was only watching his eyes. They weren't angry. They weren't scared. They were reading. The fight ended with both brothers knocked out, without a single kill. Cade walked away, untouched. Ziraka whispered to herself, "He doesn't fight with rage. He fights with purpose." And slowly, very slowly, her pride began to shift into something new. Respect. Maybe even curiosity. Late that night, Cade found a message outside his door. It was short, written by hand. "Meet me at dawn. No weapons, no cameras, just truth." The swing that shook the arena. The arena was full again, not just with bodies, but with silence. Everyone was watching. No one blinked. Even the wind seemed to pause. This was the moment. Ziraka, this Cade. One final clash. The rematch no one expected, but everyone needed. Ziraka stood in the center, alone. She wore no heavy armor today, no glowing blades. She wore a black combat suit, light, clean, calm. In her hands, she held only one weapon, a sword. Not the kind she used to carry, but a sword just like his. Simple, human, honest. Cade walked toward the arena floor. He didn't rush. His steps were slow, like a man walking into memory, like a man walking into peace. The announcer didn't scream this time. No fireworks, no music, just a soft voice over the speaker. Two warriors, no anger, no pride, just truth. They faced each other under the twin suns of Krellor Prime. 1,000 worlds watched. But for Cade and Ziraka, there was nothing else in the universe now. Just this fight. Just this final answer. Ziraka spoke first. Her voice was softer than before. No kill, no shame, just meaning. Cade nodded, agreed. Then silence. Then the bell. She charged, but not with rage this time. Her steps were clean, focused. She struck, once, then twice. Cade blocked both hits, then stepped back. They circled each other. Every move was slow, careful, like two artists painting with steel. Ziraka swung again, a hard side slice. Cade ducked low, countered. Their blades clashed with a crack of energy, but didn't spark like before. This time, they respected each other's steel, and maybe each other's pain. The fight grew faster. Step, block, strike, turn, parry, breathe, over and over. They weren't trying to kill. They were trying to understand. The crowd watched in quiet awe. No one screamed. No one cheered. Even the young ones knew this wasn't just a battle. This was a conversation between souls. Ziraka spun around with a wide arc. Cade barely blocked. He grunted, stepped back, breathing hard. She didn't press the attack. Instead, she said, "You're holding back." Cade nodded. "So are you." Ziraka smiled for the first time. "Then let's stop." She charged, faster than before. Cade met her in the middle. Blades flashed like lightning. This time, there was no dancing, no watching. This was raw skill, refined, tested, pushed. Both fighters moving faster than most eyes could follow. And then, it happened. Ziraka lifted her sword for a heavy overhead strike. Cade turned, planted his foot, and swung. A clean, sharp motion. Precise. Powerful. The sound echoed across the sky like a cracking planet. Crack. Zeraka's sword flew into the air. It spun and landed on the stone with a heavy clang. The silence was deep. Zeraka dropped to one knee. Her chest rose and fell. She wasn't bleeding. She wasn't broken. But she was defeated. She looked up. Her lips parted. "You did it again." Cade stood before her, sword pointed down, not to finish her, but to offer her a hand. She looked at his hand, then at the crowd, then at herself. She took it. He helped her stand. For the second time, Zeraka had knelt before a human. But this time, she had chosen to. The crowd exploded, not with rage, not with confusion, but with pure, deep silence, then thunderous applause. Even warriors from blood worlds clapped. Even machines from the Chrome systems nodded. The beast of Krellor Prime had been humbled, not crushed. And the human, he had won a galaxy's heart. Later, in the empty locker room, Zeraka sat beside Cade. She looked tired, not weak, just free. "You know," she said, "I always thought pain made me strong." Cade smiled. "Pain makes you hard, but healing makes you powerful." She chuckled. "I hated you when I first saw you." Cade leaned back. "I expected that." "And now?" she asked. Cade looked at her sword. "Now you're more dangerous than ever." She looked at the sword again, the human blade in her hands. So simple, so silent. But inside it, she saw something new. Balance. Purpose. Peace. A few hours later, a message played across all star systems. "The champion of Krellor Prime has been defeated and reborn. The human has shown us that strength is not power, but patience. Not control, but compassion." In a quiet place, far from the city, Zeraka stood before a grave. A small marker. Her sister's name, carved in stone. She placed her old broken blades beside it, then turned and walked away with a new sword on her back. Not as a killer, not as a hunter, but as something else. A protector. Somewhere deep in the galaxy, war machines began to stir. An old threat. An ancient force. The galaxy would need defenders soon. And two warriors would rise together, side by side. Not as enemies, but as legend. The warrior who bowed. The arena was empty now. No crowds, no lights, just dust and echoes. But Zeraka stood in the center, right where she had knelt. She looked at the marks on the floor. Scratches from the fight. Bloodstains, hers, and a thin line where Cade's swing had ended her pride. She touched the spot with her hand and whispered to herself, "I am not who I was." News of the match had traveled fast. Faster than any ship. Faster than light. Across planets and moons, creatures of all kinds saw the footage. A human warrior standing tall. A feared alien bowing not from pain, but from choice. Many were confused. Some angry. But most were quiet. Because they saw something in Zeraka's eyes they never expected to see. Peace. In the capital towers of Krellor Prime, warlords debated. "She is no longer a weapon," one said. "She's soft now." Another added, "She was our symbol. Now she follows a human." But an old voice from the back, a retired general, spoke softly. She didn't follow him. She found herself. Zeraka walked the streets with no guards now. Some aliens stared. Some turned away. But some bowed their heads in respect. A young child stepped in front of her. Blue skin, nervous hands. "Are you still strong?" he asked. Zeraka knelt down to him. She placed her hand on his chest. "Stronger. Because now, I fight for something real." The child smiled. So did she. Far outside the cities, Cade lived quietly in a small mountain home. He trained alone, just like before. No cameras, no noise. Ziraka visited him one morning. She brought her new sword, not to fight, but to learn. They stood under the cold sky. Snow fell lightly. Cade handed her a wooden training blade. She raised an eyebrow. No steel today. Cade smiled. Not today. Today is about balance. Their feet moved in circles. Blades tapped, turned, circled again. Ziraka's motions were faster now, but more calm. She was focused. Cade watched closely. "You're no longer chasing," he said. "You're listening." She nodded. "You taught me to hear the fight, not just swing into it." They trained until sunset. Then they sat in silence. Ziraka asked him the question she had buried for days. "Why didn't you ever want to lead?" Cade looked at the orange sky. "Because I've seen what happens to those who chase glory. They forget who they are." She was quiet for a moment. "And who are you?" Cade looked at her, then down at the ground. "Just someone trying to keep peace inside, before trying to save it outside." That night, Ziraka sat near the fire. Alone, but not lonely. She thought of all the warriors she had crushed, and how none of them made her feel as heavy or as light as this one human with a quiet voice and a simple sword. Elsewhere, the galaxy stirred. Deep in the cold sectors, long-forgotten machines powered on. Ships buried in ice began to rise. An old force was waking. The Forgeborn. Metal. Code. Hatred. A machine army from another age, once thought destroyed. Their signal returned. Organic life. Imperfect. Unclean. Erase. Replace. Restore. They had no feelings. No hearts. No mercy. Only one goal: wipe the galaxy clean. The council called an emergency meeting. Warlords from 100 systems joined. The screens flickered with images of metal fleets. "We're not ready," someone said. "We need a new champion," said another. Someone else whispered, "Where is Ziraka?" In the center of the council chamber, a portal opened. She stepped through, not with armor, not with blades, but with presence. Ziraka walked to the front and looked around. "I fought for pride once," she said. "That gave you a monster." She pointed to her heart. "Now I fight with purpose. That gives you a protector." Someone scoffed. "And what will you do? Challenge an entire machine army with a sword?" Ziraka smiled. "Not alone." Behind her, the door opened again. Cade stepped in. Quiet. Still. But every warrior in the room stood up. Because they knew. This was not a man with a sword. This was a storm with a soul. Together, they formed the first unified strike team. Warriors from every system. Ziraka and Cade trained them personally. Not to fight like machines, but to fight like humans. With heart. With focus. With purpose. One night, Ziraka sat beside Cade under the stars. "Do you think we can win?" she asked. Cade didn't look away from the sky. "I don't fight battles to win," he said. "I fight so the next generation doesn't have to." She nodded, then asked one more question. "Why did you help me, Cade? Why not break me completely?" He turned to her. His voice was quiet. "Because I saw the pain behind your pride. I know what it's like to carry a fire that never stops burning." Ziraka looked down. And for the first time in her life, she allowed herself to say, "Thank you." Somewhere deep in the cold of space, the machine army prepared. Thousands of ships. Millions of units. A war unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen was coming. But this time, the galaxy was not afraid. Because it had something new. 2 warriors. One human with a heart that could not be shaken. And one alien who had once hunted strength, and now stood for something greater. 2 legends, 1 path. The stars were no longer quiet. They burned with tension. Across the galaxy, signals screamed warnings. Space stations turned to full alert. Military fleets prepared weapons. Civilian planets began evacuation. The Forgeborn, machines from an ancient war, had returned. They came without sound, without mercy, without reason. They came to erase. They believed organics were weak, dirty, emotional. They believed they were the future, but something stood in their way. Two warriors, one born of fire, one born of silence. In the command chamber of the Resistance fleet, Cade and Ziraka stood before the final war map. Red lights blinked, enemy ships. Yellow lines, defense perimeters. Blue, falling fast. The council members looked worried. "Our last line is here," one said. "If we lose this system, the core worlds fall." Ziraka studied the map. "Then we hold it," she said. "We don't have the numbers," another added. Cade stepped forward. "But we have something else." They looked at him. He pointed to his chest. "We have will." Outside, in the main hangar, the first unified strike team gathered. Aliens of every kind. Soldiers from dozens of systems. Fighters with scars, stories, and eyes full of fire. Cade stood before them. He spoke with calm. Not loud, but every ear listened. "The machines don't understand us. They don't understand why we fight, why we keep standing, why we don't give up. They think we're weak because we care, because we feel, because we bleed." He looked at Ziraka, then back at the crowd. "Let's show them what that really means." The fleet launched. Thousands of ships. A final charge. One last chance. The Resistance met the Forgeborn head-on, at the edge of the Velrun Rift. A battlefield in space, stars behind, fire ahead. Ziraka led from the front. Her cruiser smashed through enemy walls. She barked orders, moved with fury and focus. In the heart of the chaos, Cade dropped into a machine carrier with only one squad. Their mission: cut off the command core. Inside the carrier, metal walls closed in fast. Lasers ripped through the dark. Cade moved like a whisper, fast, precise. But this time, he didn't fight alone. Ziraka landed beside him mid-battle, blades spinning, armor burning from strikes, but her eyes glowing. "You really can't stay out of danger," she said. Cade smiled. "I didn't want you to have all the fun." Together, they moved like one being. A swing, a block, a dodge, a blast. Their bodies spoke without words. Their blades moved with memory. Two warriors, one rhythm. Elsewhere, the battle rage. Resistance fighters fought with everything they had. Alien squads defended civilians. Old enemies fought side by side. But the machines kept coming. Stronger, smarter, colder. In the core of the flagship, the Forgeborn leader, Unit Prime, watched the battle. It had no heart, no face, just a steel mask and a voice of empty logic. Organic resistance at 32%, calculating final erasure. Then, a warning. Two life signs breached the central chamber. Human. Krillorian. Ziraka kicked the final door open. Smoke and sparks filled the room. There, waiting, was Unit Prime, a massive machine, over 10 feet tall, with blades for arms and no soul in its eyes. Cade stepped forward. "This ends now." Unit Prime's voice crackled. "You are weak. You care. You hesitate. That is why you will fall." Ziraka raised her sword. "No," she said. "That's why we're still standing." The final fight began. Unit Prime struck with machine speed. Steel arms spun, slicing the air like windstorms. Cade blocked one strike, rolled under another. Ziraka leaped, slammed her blade against the machine's shoulder. Sparks flew. Steel bent. But the machine was fast, too fast. It threw Ziraka across the chamber. She hit the wall hard. Cade's face tightened. He stood alone. Unit Prime stepped toward him. "Emotion is your flaw." Cade didn't move. "No," he whispered. "It's my shield." Then he swung. A clean arc, straight to the machine's neck. But Prime caught it. Barely. Sparks exploded. Their blades locked. Ziraka stood again, blood on her lip. She screamed and charged. She didn't swing wild. She didn't roar like before. She moved with control, with balance, with purpose. She struck low, cutting Prime's leg. The machine stumbled. Cade twisted, broke free, and together, they moved in for the final strike. 2 blades. 1 swing. Together. Steel met steel. And then, silence. Unit Prime's head dropped to the floor. Its body fell seconds later. Dead. Gone. The machine heart stopped. The battle above changed fast. The Forge-born ships shut down, one by one. Without their leader, they lost command. Their code broke. Their fire ended. The Resistance fleet watched in shock as enemy ships began to fall from the sky like metal rain. Cheers rose, across every channel, across every world. The war was over. Ziraka stood in the smoke, her armor cracked, her hands bloody, but her eyes were alive. She looked at Cade. He leaned on his sword, breathing heavy. "You okay?" she asked. He nodded slowly. "I will be." "You?" She smiled, small and real. "I'm finally free." Weeks later, a statue was built in the middle of the Krellorian Hall. Not of one hero, but 2. Cade, standing tall with his sword planted in the ground. Ziraka beside him, one hand raised, not holding a weapon, but holding a child's hand carved from stone. Below the statue, words were etched in both human and Krellorian tongue. 2 warriors, 1 path. They taught us not to fear pain, but to grow from it. Not to chase war, but to fight for peace. Cade disappeared from public life after that. He returned to the mountains, to quiet, to simplicity. He said the war inside him was over now. Ziraka stayed, but not as a hunter, not as a killer. She became a guide, a teacher, a protector. And when young warriors asked her who trained her, she would smile and point to the stars. "A human with no armor," she'd say. "The only one who didn't want to break me. Just help me stand." The end.